Today, we have a bit of a different Big Finish throwback review for you all because we're killing four birds with one stone here. Not only does tomorrow see the release of the fourth Doctor Adventures Metamorphosis, but next month, Big Finish is also releasing a couple of lost stories featuring the second Doctor and Jamie, one also featuring Zoe, even. And the TV series, meanwhile, has been playing about with some more godlike beings recently. A couple of weeks back, we had the Devil's Cord, of course, featuring Jinx Monsoon as Maestro. And on top of all this, today sees the release of the Celestial Toymaker animation, the original 1966 First Doctor story where Michael Gough first took on the role of the Toymaker. So, what connects all these things? That'd be the Toymaker's sister in a second Doctor, a lost story, the Queen of Time.
Yes, the Devil's Cord very much put me in the mood to say, hey, why don't we revisit this one for a throwback?
Yeah. Take a look at another member of the Pantheon in retrospect, I suppose she
Yes,
is. And I mean, it's an interesting one to say the least. Submitted by Brian Hales to the production office as a sequel of sorts to Celestial Toymaker. Uh, sort of throwing around a lot of the same ideas, but just repackaged slightly, I suppose.
I think you can instantly see why this one wasn't made just
Mm,
from the opening arrival in Hecuba's domain with like the
yeah.
pond and lake.
Hecuba being the eponymous Queen of Time. She is the Toymaker's sister.
Which is done wonderfully within the story because the second Doctor has an idea who it could be. It's not until
He's
the
very
final moments where you get the Toymaker connection.
he's very coy, isn't he, throughout
Yes,
this? It's a bit more mischievous second Doctor, a bit more along the lines of Evil of the Daleks or Tomb of the Cybermen, where he's not quite letting his companions in on everything.
he lets him in enough to survive certain aspects, like the little Dutch boy,
Yeah,
just
he's
so
dropping
they can.
hints for them throughout.
Um, but you can imagine if this was done, how Troughton would probably love it because Hecuba is quite a flirtatious, very sinister. The actress playing Hecuba does a wonderful job playing this sort of sexy, but can just flip at the turn of a dial and be absolutely angry and just the cackle and evil laugh she has. It's very sort of, I guess, before Neil Patrick Harris was the toy maker, you can almost hear the arpeggio in the laugh in a way.
No. Yeah, I mean, structure-wise, this one certainly copies a lot from the original Celestial Toymaker story as well, with, the Doctor being trapped with the Celestial being while his companions are forced to play all sorts of strange games, but this time with more of a clock theme. It's all to do with different times and stuff, and some of them are fun, some of them go on a bit, I feel.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Hmm. But I mean, you can certainly see, as you said earlier, why this one wasn't quite made. It
I
probably
can,
it
I
would
can,
have either been an expensive one or a rather naff looking one, or both at the same
I'm,
time.
I can see certain elements being done all right, like the initial first game, Jamie and Zoe play with like the clock face, or when they have to jump over the sort of needles.
Hmm.
I
There's
can
certainly
see
some
that.
clever games within there as well.
Yes, so you've got sort of it's that's this is the interesting thing, having these two companions play these games because Um, Zoe's a very logical character, and she's trying to find the logic in these games, whereas Jamie's sort of bull in the china shop, especially with the game of trying to save the Doctor because they've got 5 minutes before he dies from, suffocating.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of that going on, highlighting the differences between the two. Originally, when it was submitted, Victoria was included in the uh, outline, but it was chosen to instead go for Zoe because part of the logic was by the time this made it into production properly anyway, it probably would have been Wendy Padbury as the companion role. And so they sort of went on that logic, but also it made things a bit more interesting having her apply that more logical sense to the games and give a much more of a different approach to what Jamie has. And we're sort of seeing that same thing again with the upcoming Operation Werewolf next month, where when that was submitted, again, it was Victoria, but they've taken that logic of by the time it made it into production proper, it would have had to been rewritten to accommodate Zoe.
Mm.
But, yeah, it's funny how these things work out. I think you enjoyed this story more than I did. It's fair
Yeah,
to say.
yeah. I had a good time with this one. I think the narration really works well for this one because it's
You
describing the
need it.
games without the characters giving you the exposition dump, going, "Oh, look at this! There's loads of clocks there, Zoe. What are we gonna do?"
Yeah. It's
Um,
only three cast members. You've
yeah,
got Fraser Hines as both the Doctor, Jamie, and narrator, Wendy Padbury as Zoe and narrator, and then you have Hecuba in there as well, played by Caroline Faber. And so it's very contained with that, isn't it?
yes,
And you get a lot of narration to fill those gaps, probably more so than you'd usually get from the early adventures. Certainly with how the early adventures evolved as they went on. You can very much see that this is a prototype of what that form would be, but it's still not quite there yet. I think of the Lost Stories featuring narration, though, this one probably works out the best
yes. So I think
because,
the story demands it really.
hmm, yeah, but certainly I'm not upset that Operation Werewolf is just going the full cast route instead. I think it's a show of how Big Finish has changed over the past decade or more, really, with how their approach to these lost stories featuring uh, cast members who have sadly passed on now. You know how they've adapted that approach. But yeah, Queen of Time wasn't quite for me. I think it's bad. It took me a while to get through this one. I was enjoying parts of it. Some of the games were good. It just felt a bit too long, which is odd because a lot of these parts are quite short.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it felt quite rapid, like the
Yeah.
second half of the story did.
Yeah, I think one of the parts is only around 22 minutes. So, yeah, it's certainly not one that will consume a lot of your time, but I feel like it consumed more of my time than it actually did, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's interesting because I was listening to the behind the scenes, and Catherine Harvey, the person who adapted this story, said
Mm.
that there was about three climaxes in one episode, whereas I think in other certain episodes there weren't any sort of big dramatic moments to be your cliffhanger moment. So she
Oh,
had to sort of space it out when adapting this story, which I found quite interesting. Because there are
oh,
moments where you think, "Oh, that would be a good cliffhanger. That would be a good cliffhanger."
yeah, that's unusual. I mean, what would you give it out of 10?
I would give it probably a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's a story that probably works best as an audio because this story is all about imagination, really. And I think it does have some quite grim ideas of like the victims being turned into clocks. And, some of the games, like you say, are quite fun where the second Doctor and Hecuba are playing basically how can they outwit each other with sort of military history, which I thought was quite a fun
Yeah,
little game.
how things evolve over time. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's a bit like Stick Wars, I guess. That little PC game.
Or you know what else it reminds me of? The Mind Robber, where
Yes.
he's facing off against the Master of the Land of Fiction there, and they're
Mm,
coming up with different things, actually, funnily enough. Which,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, of probably the one this has the most in common with for the Second Doctor's era. That's like your thematic jumping on point, I suppose. Well, this is sort of in that same vein as that was, which is another story I'm not too keen on. So yeah, maybe it's just
See, I don't
not.
like the mind robber, but I love this, which is bizarre.
Oh, I mean, if you've listened to the Queen of Time,
What was your
let,
rating actually? Let's.
yeah, because I feel like this is quite a well-regarded one, and I think my opinion is in the minority on this one. I mean, narration really does help with a lot of the descriptions. It goes into quite a lot of detail, to a prose level, really,
Hmm.
on certain things. And certainly, you have a lot more color here, which
Yeah,
always feels,
wrong when it's like
yeah.
red velvet curtains, gold platter.
You're like,
Uh,
no, it's meant to be black and white, but
I'm
I
not
think that's,
imagining.
I'm
I'm not
not,
imagining
yeah,
the color. It's black and white for me.
uh, I'm not that fussed by. I
I
just think
am.
it's
I
funny
get
because
triggered by it.
certainly when you look at some early
Yeah, yeah.
adventures, when they're talking about writing those, they say, "Oh no, we avoid mentioning color just to be specific," but then others will go into full detail. It's just funny when you think of a lost story, you think that's one that would want to be authentic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I've got to say, really.
Okay.
I'd probably give it a 6,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. All
Reasonable.
right.
Yeah. Like I say, I enjoyed quite a few moments of it, but
I think
I feel like it's a bit of an overrated one.
if you enjoy Devil's Cord and you enjoy like the Maestro and you want a little bit more of the Toymaker's family, then definitely give it a whirl. I think
Yeah. And
because
we've
you can
got
definitely see how Hecuba fits into that pantheon.
Yeah. And we've got Annette Badlands taking a turn as the toy maker tomorrow,
Hmm.
facing off against Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor. So we'll be listening to that and getting a review of that to you really soon, along with, of course, the upcoming Lost Stories, Death World, and Operation Werewolf when they come out next month. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
we'll be talking about Maestro again at some point, along with Celestial Toymaker animation. Because, like we say, this release sort of covers a lot
A lot of
that's going
bases.
on right now. Yeah. Of those four things, let us know what you're most looking forward to. Well, you kind of can't say for Maestro, but
Yeah.
sort of the one who waits, another
Yeah.
member of the Pantheon. As we look forward to the Doctor Who season one finale now. I mean, that's got to be up there. But I'm also excited for some Lost Stories next month.
Definitely. It's put me in the mood for more Second Doctor audio goodness.
Yeah, and July is certainly looking to be a good month for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But until then, take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.